Sean Lennon here with Gorgeous George from MMA Junkie podcast, and we are here to talk about this Saturday, UFC 286, and give his predictions. Hopefully you get lucky because it's St. Patrick's Day weekend, and you guys aren't doing anything Saturday afternoon. And there's going to be a lot of NCAA March Madness as well that's going on during the day as well. So a lot going on. But Saturday afternoon, the fights start, I believe, at 4 p.m. Central Time. So I think, George, that'd be 2 p.m. Central Time, your time, right?
Yeah, for the main card. And if you allow me to do a shameless plug, my brother and I will be hosting a watch-along for not only the main card that starts at 2 Pacific, 5 Eastern. At noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, we will be with you for 4 featured prelim fights and then the main card, which is the pay-per-view. So hop in and join. I always encourage, especially the people that don't get every pay-per-view or don't get any pay-per-views, rather than hit refresh on Twitter or call your buddy and bug him, right, you can just listen to Goze and I will tell you exactly what's happening instantaneously.
For sure. Well, let's get into it. We have a great lightweight match, probably maybe a title eliminator. We don't know, but Justin Gaethje is taking on Raphael Fiziev. And Justin Gaethje, obviously, it's surprising that he hasn't fought since May of 2022.
Justin Gaethje hasn't?
Justin Gaethje has, and it's surprising to me. I thought he fought more recently than that.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, I was thinking he just fought in New York against Chandler, but that was Poirier that fought Chandler in New York this past November. Gaethje would have been a whole year before that. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I know that Gaethje is one of the guys that is stuck to his guns in terms of he is not your late notice guy. Mm-hmm. He basically tells the UFC, I'm not your guy for that, which is, I think, Cowboy Cerrone's tagline back in the day. He wants 3 months to prepare. On this one, I believe, when the fight was made, I immediately looked at the calendar and because it felt short, and it was around the 6-week, 2 months mark. Now, what I believe is that the UFC tells fighters, hey, get in shape because this is what we're targeting, and then they figure something out. So I don't think they completely caught him with his pants down or anything like that. And I don't think he'll make an excuse. But I remember he was like, I need my 3 months of preparation to hone in and be the monster that I am. Right. And this is a tough fight. He said something on the Embedded that I watched today. He said, this guy is me 5 years ago, hungry and ready to take out a vet, except I'm the vet now. I'm not the hungry lion. So I gotta dial it in and basically, be prepared for that.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. I can't wait to see this fight. Raphael Fiziev has only had one loss in his career, and he's coming off a couple big wins as well in his career. Raphael Dos Anjos is the most recent one, a big knockout that happened late in the 5th round. And before that, Brad Riddell in a 3rd round wheel kick knockout back in 2021.
Yeah, man. Fiziev is no joke. He's a really, really polished striker. He lives in Thailand, I believe. Like Piotr Yan, those guys, a few of those guys have been over there, and they've had a lot of success. It seems like the Russians either come from the combat sambo lineage, right, along with the wrestling, or they're just strikers, that have to adapt and learn and make sure the fight doesn't get to the ground and just keep it on the feet and hammer you. And that's where Fiziev feels the most comfortable. Gaethje is a guy that wrestled Division I and stood on the podium. What does that mean? Well, in every weight class in the NC2A March Madness, similar to March Madness, but they call it March Madness, standing on the podium means you're an All-American, and that's a really big accomplishment. Now, I know in mixed martial arts, when we introduce our guests, we go out of our way. He's a 2-time NC2A Division I champ, or maybe he won it once, or maybe like Bo Nickel, he won it 3 times. And trust me, that's a big deal. Right. But really in the wrestling world, let's say you come up short, you still want to be an All-American and stand on that podium, and that's a big deal. Like I know Michael Chandler did it. Right. Justin Gaethje did it. So not everyone's been able to win an NC2A title, but being on the podium is kind of like, I wouldn't say good enough, but I think there's some satisfaction to every kid that started wrestling at 5 or 6 and then did it through middle school, high school, and then now at that level. And what I have noticed, sorry to keep talking so long, is a lot of them also come to realize, okay, I'm really good, but there's like 1 or 2 guys in my weight class I just haven't been able to beat. And more than likely, they're going to continue on and represent the United States.
Right.
And I'm ducking out. It's been nice. Deuces. MMA. You know what I mean? Like that seems to kind of happen. And then the ones that are national champs and kind of have been able to take it to that extra level, a lot of them will turn to, you know, the Olympics or the world team and see where it goes. And then eventually the transition. I mean, like Jordan Burroughs is kind of like not an anomaly, but he's someone that everyone's been waiting, like, are you going to do it? Are you going to do it? And he's just stuck to wrestling because he luckily came along at a time where he could make money from wrestling and he's fine and he doesn't have to get punched in the face. And he's become one of the greatest wrestlers our country's ever produced. So from time to time, that happens.
Definitely. When you look at this fight, what did Justin Gaethje do wrong? Because I didn't really feel like his head was in the game when he fought Oliveira. I didn't see anything from him that showed me he had prepared well for Oliveira, or he was, you know what I mean? Like he stood at, you know, it just seemed like he was going through the motions. That's just me.
Yeah. Well, I don't remember the fight too specifically. But
George,
I
was gonna say, I think he was fighting not to lose.
Okay. The one thing I've noticed with Justin Gaethje, and he told us this a long time ago, was he knew he wasn't going to be an undefeated fighter forever, and he had already come to terms with losing. And I kind of found it a little bit bizarre because most undefeated fighters, if you remember, he got to like 17-0, 18. He won WSOF, he defended it. They think they're bulletproof, right? But he kind of came to that conclusion. And what I noticed about when he, you know, in his losses was as tough of an MFer as that guy is, he is breakable a little bit, but not in the sense like he's where you question the toughness. I just think that he doesn't have maybe the all-around skill that some of these other guys have acquired. And I'll give you an example. Oliveira was known as a submission machine.
Right.
You know, but a lot of his work was off the back. You could break him in a fight, you know, and he'd quit and that'd be it. And all of a sudden, his resurgence, not only did he become a better striker along the way, he also worked on wrestling and he was starting to take people down. Like, so he was actually addressing those holes in his game. Two things I've noticed from both Gaethje and Poirier, maybe even Chandler, is when they have been submitted, for example, or when they're being dominated, they don't seem to have answers to those difficult spots.
Right.
And so dare I say there's levels because heck, all three of them have been world champions. You know, they own proper lightweight belts. But in terms of like, you know, putting them in that Mount Rushmore of lightweights, like with Habib and BJ Penn, they come up just short. And I think it's usually because maybe as well-rounded as they were, they still had that one hole in their game where they can't address it. I don't know, you know, I don't remember Gaethje ever using an excuse in the Oliveira fight. I just think Oliveira was fighting at a high level, man, you know?
Yeah.
And guess what? Oliveira, you know, he kind of gave everything he had against Makhachev, but he also looked like A, he wasn't his best, and B, like he was ready to just check out.
Yeah. Crazy. And you look at this fight, how do you feel it's going to play out? You know, obviously Fiziev, you said he's a striker. He's been able to get this far, utilizing what he's had. And Gaethje, you know, loves to bring it. He loves to strike. He loves to mix it up. He likes it to kind of leave it, you know, take a lot of offense as well as give a lot of offense. So how do you feel it plays out?
Well, I still would prefer if Gaethje went back to leg kicking for starters. And do you remember when Michael Chandler took down Dustin Poirier?
Yes.
To me, that showed me that even though he was a veteran, a 3-time world champ at Bellator, you know, a rich lightweight, that he was still willing to learn and apply. And he was willing to go back to his wrestling roots and take him down. And if you recall, Poirier won round 1, Chandler won round 2. And Chandler looked like he was ready to win round 3 because he realized Poirier didn't kind of have an answer. Except I think he got caught up too much with the crowd. And when he dumped him, he tried to bury him. And then the momentum took him over.
Right.
Poirier was able to regain the top position. Anyway, I would like Gaethje to also threaten Fiziev with some wrestling. You know, why not? Even if it's just for one round and the round's over, or Fiziev gets up, at least you're in his head. Right. You know, Merab Dvalishvili, I could tell he was beating Peter Yan, not just because of the cardio or because of that pace he put on him, because he had proven to him he could take him down over and over. And then guess what? I can crack you too. Yes. And you could see Peter Yan, as he was thinking, he was just behind the whole time. And I think that's one way you can take out someone and get them out of their comfort zone. Because if you guys are just firing off strike for strike, Fiziev has all the capabilities of being Justin Gaethje. Right. I think Gaethje needs to present that all-around game that he just refuses to go to. He refuses to really use his wrestling. He wants to put on a show. What show? What show is there to put on? You know, like you're already a superstar. You're already a stud. Now just win the fight. Be strategic. Win the fight. You know, and catch this guy off guard a little bit and get your hand raised. Go home with 2 checks and, you know, be involved in title contender talk. You know, enough with putting on shows. Some of these guys have already put on their shows. Now they got to think.
For sure, man. It's interesting to see. You know, he's still working with his same coach, I believe, right? With Justin
Trevor Whitman, yeah.
Trevor Whitman. And it's interesting, in the past year, Trevor Whitman's, all his fighters lost gold. Both, you know, Rose and Kamaru Usman. And we'll talk about that fight.
Yeah, well. They did. And, you know, he keeps a small group. I believe it's those 3, and he might have another fighter or 2, but he keeps it really, really small. I think he feels like, hey, those days are past me. Now I'm just going to focus in on these 3 fighters who are firing at all. You know, all pistons are firing, and I think he can make a good living and just kind of ride these 3 until the wheels come off. And then I don't know what he's going to do. Yeah. Doesn't seem to be a consistent presence like he was on the UFC broadcast. And he doesn't seem to be assembling a big team like he had in the past. But that isolated coaching, has allowed him to give full attention to each one of them. Now, it's weird because a few times they've all been on the same card, or at least 2 of the 3 have been on the same. But they, for the most part, have gotten the job done. Sure, yeah, in the last year, things didn't go good for Rose and for, you know, that was a boring fight. And then Kamaru, he was dominating, and then he got caught.
I know.
So it's not like you can go, oh, my God, they got steamrolled. No, it just wasn't that. It was just crappy luck, I guess. But he'll be with both of them. And another thing I caught from today's Embedded was he says he's basically had 2 camps and kind of kept them apart. But today they were kind of grappling, and he said it was kind of good to see them kind of go at it a little bit. But for the most part, they don't really use each other as training partners, even though they're only 1 weight class apart.
Interesting. And so how do you feel the fight will end up? We think it's going to be a decision or finish?
Man, these guys are tough, especially Justin Gaethje. I would say I'm going to put on my positivity hat, and I think that there will be a finish. It'll come from the striking variety. So I see a TKO stoppage, but it ain't going to be early. I see it at least in late round 2 or somewhere in round 3. I think both guys realize the importance, because if Fiziev wins, now you got to say his name right after you say Dariush's name in terms of title talk. We know that the next fight is Makhachev versus, I mean, they haven't even announced it. I'm guessing it could be Poirier or the winner of Oliveira versus Dariush. Who knows?
Right.
But then after that, who else? Well, now you have to say Fiziev if he beats Gaethje. So huge fight for Fiziev. And for Gaethje, if he loses this fight, now we're going to be talking about him the same way we talk about maybe McGregor and Ferguson, where now you're trying to figure out what their next 3 fights can be just so they can be right back in that same position. So I think both guys are going to go for it. And I think both guys are just too clinical as strikers to make it to the end of 15 minutes. I'm going to ride with Gaethje on this one.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm interested to see how it plays out. It's hard for me to predict this one as well.
But just enjoy it.
Yes.
Enjoy it. And I thank every single one of these veterans who have reached the point where maybe they have to look down the ladder, which is what Gaethje, I guess, is doing. I know Dominic Cruz did it last year. He looked down the ladder, right. And Marlon Vera was there, and it didn't go Cruz's way. But that's how the game works. When you're coming up in the world, you're hoping for a veteran to be willing to fight you and give you a chance, and so that's kind of what's happening here. You have to get back to the game, and I feel like that's what Gaethje's kind of doing.
We'll see what happens. Fiziev is definitely a strong option, though. You know what I mean? For betting wise.
What are the odds?
I don't have the odds in front of me, but what I'm saying is, like, I feel like he is, like, he's 12-1. Like that goes in his favor, that he's only lost once. Mm-hmm. Like, I would kind of side towards him. I just hate to go against Justin Gaethje. You see, I'm a fan of Justin Gaethje. I have his picture right there,
Mm-hmm. Let me look it up right here real fast.
I hate going against favorites of mine, but sometimes, you got to roll with who your gut tells you to.
Look at this. Fiziev minus 225, minus 230. Gaethje plus 175, plus 190. Holy cow. Well, that Fiziev fight over Raphael Dos Anjos, that must have really sent a message.
Yeah.
Because I think the world of Raphael Dos Anjos, except he's a little older now.
Right.
But that guy can strike. He can wrestle. He's got good cardio. And he's a great jiu-jitsu guy. But, Fiziev was able to shut all that down. So, boy, I don't know. I mean, I almost want to rethink my pick. But I'm like you. I'm a little bit of a homer. And I like riding with some of the guys that we've covered as our shows kind of come along too. And Fiziev's kind of like just a little bit of the next generation. But I really like Fiziev too. And he's coming off pretty good on Embedded in a way without having to talk too much.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure. I think it's going to be a war. So hopefully it'll be a deliver. And then we'll talk about the next fight. So I'll stop this one.
Okay.